Did
is pretty cool.
it used to be called 12 Monkeys Comics and Games, maybe, and now there's infinite of them?
I got it. It was called Matrix Games. I'm so sorry for
Matrix.
anyone who was here, anyone who's watching, who's familiar with Matrix Games, but they changed the name to Infinite Monkey Comics and Games, and he is running that store now. So it's good to see him back. Obviously, we're all familiar with Todd, and it looks like we're underway.
Okay, here we go. Todd Anderson's leading with the Godless Shrine into Doomed Traveler. Junk Aristocrats loves these creatures that you can sacrifice for value.
Yeah, I mean, Brad is the biggest fan of Doomed Traveler and Young Wolf, and it's kind of what makes this deck start to go. Obviously, you know, it's not an Experiment 1 or anything busty and flashy like a Champion of the Parish to start the game, but it's all part of the plan with this deck, all the synergies that really make this deck go, as you're going to see Young Wolf now.
Yeah, I mean, these cards, I remember playing with these cards in Limited, and sometimes, you know, Young Wolf might not make the cut in your Limited deck. But here it is at the 1-0 table. Charles Baker, meanwhile, leading with an Overgrown Tomb into Stomping Ground, so he doesn't have much action on the first couple of turns. Todd's going to crash in for 2. And, oh, there you go.
So he's got Varls too. So one of the things with the Jund deck is, you know, when they don't start off with a Farseek on turn 2, they play a very, very fair game. And it looks like Charles is playing a ridiculously fair game. Now, as you've seen his hand, he has like a Thrag, Tusk, a Huntmaster of the Fells, and a Putrefy. Putrefy looking horrible on this board currently.
Yeah. There's 2 creatures that basically come back, undying and leaving a token behind, and Varals can regenerate. Yeah, without that Farseek, I mean, the keys to the Jund deck, Huntmaster of the Fells, Olivia, you want to hit those 4-drops on turn 3, and a Thragtusk on turn 4. So Charlie's certainly going to have something on turn 4, since he has not had a play here yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised that he just takes the damage right now. He goes down to 13, and then Todd's going to play a Blood Artist, so maybe
Gotta respond.
Yeah, I think you probably have to respond here. You can't regenerate off of Putrefy, so I think you just fire it off towards the Varls, but he doesn't even do that, so I'm a little bit surprised. Maybe he just wants to take out the Blood Artist? Okay, sure.
Okay.
So he's going to have to take a damage to do that, move down to 12, Todd's going to move up to 19. But he's got Charlie's got some serious catching up to do. Hopefully he has a 4th land for the Huntmaster of the Fells.
Here we go. What are we going to see here? Huntmaster, Olivia. Could also have... He's got Garrick, Primal Hunter, but no Relentless, it looks like. And there's the Huntmaster.
So it's going to be Huntmaster. It's going to be a Wolf token. He's going to move up to 14. I mean, I guess that's going to allow him to play some defense at this point. It's pretty nice that he has gotten Blood Artist off the table, too, with that Putrefy last turn. So he's doing okay. He's trying to come back, as Todd looks like he's going to sacrifice Doom Traveler. He has Spear token into play to Varls, and maybe start scavenging and start going up in the air.
Yeah, Todd's going to make a 1/1 Flying Spirit token here, and then most likely his plan... Okay, so he wanted to get the Morbid for Tragic Slip, and he's going to upgrade his Young Wolf to a 2/2.
To an Old Wolf.
To a slightly grizzled wolf, let's say, or Rune Clawed. And he's probably going to scavenge here, the Doomed Traveler onto a Spirit or to his wolf.
We'll put on the wolf, so it can crash through the other wolf. I guess that makes sense. Now you're going to see him play another Doomed Traveler. And yeah, happy with these attacks. You kind of see all the synergy in the Junk Aristocrats deck, like right now, playing out. All the different things it can do. Again, it doesn't do anything insane, but it just all works together.
Yeah, Varals is a reasonably fair card, I would say. But all of the pieces really fit together here. The sacrificing creatures to get value out of them and then scavenging them is very, very useful, and especially in this deck where you have multiple Morbid effects.
I saw Charlie drew a Mizium Mortars for the turn, but Thragtusk is going to do what it always does, which is try to stabilize the board. Charlie's going to move up to 16 and pass it back.
So now maybe the choice to put the scavenge counter on the wolf instead of the spirit is gonna cost Todd here, because that 3/3 wolf can only trade with the Thragtusk and leave a beast behind.
It doesn't look nearly as good. I think Todd drew another Doom Traveler.
And he chose not to sacrifice the other Doom Traveler.
Yeah, I thought we might see that because we saw that the previous turn. Is that it looked like he wanted to go in the air, and you see him sacrificing.
So now he does it.
Yeah.
What is he? So he wants to scavenge somewhere here. Maybe scavenge onto the Varol, so that will also trade With the Thragtusk? Yeah, okay. And it does have that regeneration shield from the sacrifice.
Alright, so here come these guys. And I kind of like this. I mean, I think Charlie is going to like immediately trade the Thraktos with a Young Wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has to.
He's going to get his Beast token, and he's going to end up taking 2, 3. He's going to take 4, so go down to 12. But I think that, you know, he's doing a pretty nice job of stabilizing, again, with a draw that did not include Farseek. You know, he needed to have Huntmaster and Thragtusk, and he did. So I think he's doing pretty good.
And you said he has that Mizium Mortars. That's going to be key in this matchup here. I mean, it can't clear the board completely, because Todd can regenerate, he has a Doom Traveler, but clearing out those Spirit tokens is going to be very important, especially if he does not have an Olivia for air defense.
Yeah, the big question is, does he have the 3rd red? And he doesn't right now, so he's going to play Cavernous Souls. We'll see what it's going to name, and it looks like, yeah, he's got Olivia and a Ground Seal in his hand.
So you're saying you can't name Cavernous Souls on instants?
Not yet.
Sorceries?
Give us time.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be a land like that soon enough.
Tribal? But he does have the Olivia, so he has enough mana to ping. He can take out one of the spirits, block the other one. So Todd has to put the brakes on here, probably.
Especially because he drew a Woodland Cemetery last turn. There's not a ton that he can really do in this, in this particular game state. This is where Olivia kind of reigns supreme, as it often does.
If you cannot get Olivia Voldaren off the board, her 2 abilities, you know, red and 1, deal 1 damage to target creature, can take out the token army. Alright, Todd's coming in with a 4-4. And Charles chump blocks.
Actually, I actually kind of like that. Just like keeping,
and now he
keeping
can
the life total high.
And he can ping now to force the regenerate, and more importantly, it makes Varolz into a vampire, so now he can steal it next turn.
So you see Todd kind of considering his options, and he's going to sacrifice that creature to regenerate it. But Olivia's going to get a little bit bigger, so if Charlie had shot in one of the tokens, you know, Todd sacrifices the token.
Sure, yeah.
So I actually like that play a lot. And I think you bring up the thing that's the most important, is that now that Varolz is a vampire, now things that definitely change, because that's the one thing that Todd kind of has going for him, is that Varolz is, you know, kind of trying to dominate this board a little bit. As you guys see Olivia Voldaren on the screen, Varolz is not going to be able to do that anymore if Charlie decides that he wants to take it.
And very key here, Varolz's sacrifice ability is sacrifice another creature. Does not come into play very often, but you cannot self-sacrifice to dodge the control-taking ability from Olivia.
And Charlie attacks Olivia and just passes the turn back, basically daring Todd to do his worst. I don't know
what the worst is.
Yeah, I don't know the worst thing he can do.
I mean, sacrifice a creature, Tragic Slip is probably the worst damage you can do here.
And before Todd even gets to attack, Charlie says, before your attackers, take your Varolz, so no Spirit token's going to come across.
Sure, yeah.
Take
says, one, that's fine.
Charlie says, all right, I'll take 1 and pass the turn back. And I think Todd knows that he's in some serious trouble here, because if you don't deal with Olivia, like within the first, like the first or second turn that it's in play, that means you obviously don't have an answer, and its damage is already going to be done.
Right. Untapping with Olivia, and especially because Charles had the 6 mana, so he could actually get the ping in, along with casting Olivia, was a great tempo play for him there. And now Todd's kind of up the paddle, up the creek without the paddle. Just thinking over his options. Here comes a 4-4 Olivia and a 4-4 Varolz.
Yeah. I mean, you saw Todd reach for the Doom Travelers. Like, do I consider blocking? What does blocking even really accomplish for me right now, which is not a ton. Now Charlie has a Thraktos to follow up, so now he's got a better board position, the best things on the board, and he's at a healthy life total. And Todd draws another land. He's going to pick him up. So Charlie Baker's going to win game 1.
Wow.
Pretty dominant, actually. Without a Farseek, I think that's like the best draw that he could probably have. He starts on with a Putrefy into Putrefy to take care of the Blood Artist, into the Huntmaster and the Thraktos, into Olivia plus a shot. I think that's what he's looking for if it's not a Farseek draw.
That's 4 ideal turns right there.
Yeah.
Minus the Farseek. And if you have the Farseek, you can just kind of accelerate your plan by a turn.
So we're going to take a look at the sideboards here. We'll go over Todd's first because he is going to be on the play. There are 4 Abrupt Decays, 3 Intangible Virtues, 2 Duress, 1 Sin Collector, 1 War Priest of Thune, 2 Sorin Lord of Innistrad, and 2 Unflinching Courage. So, I mean,
I don't know if that's good enough in this matchup.
I mean, looking at these cards, you know, what I always do when I'm looking over sideboards, excuse me, is like what kind of cards stand out in their particular matchups. You know, Intangible Virtue is fine here, but it's not great.
Yeah.
Duress, kind of the same, where like you kind of want to board in Duress to take care of their removal spells, but the cards that are actually really good against you are the creatures, like Olivia, like a Thragtusk. So, I mean, I don't think that Duress is great. Same can be said for Sin Collector, as far as that category goes. And then Sorin, Lord of Innistrad is okay, but it depends on how many bonfire-type effects that Charlie has in his deck, and he has 3 of them in his main deck, which, of course, Todd doesn't know, but we do. So I don't even think Sorin's that great, and at the end of the day, I don't think any of the cards that Todd has access to are great here.
Yeah, Charlie's got 3 bonfires and 2 Mizium mortars, so he can clear out token armies. The bonfires can deal damage to the planeswalkers. What I like to look at in sideboarding, Cedric, is what just happened to that game? What kind of dominated? And it was Olivia.
Yes.
And Todd does not really have an answer to that in his sideboard. He can bring in more removal and Abrupt Decays, but they don't deal with Olivia. All he really has is the 4 Tragic Slips in his main deck.
I mean, you look at Charlie's deck list, the only thing that Abrupt Decay actually deals with is a flipped Huntmaster of the Fells, and you're certainly not going to bring in Abrupt Decay for that.
No.
So, I mean, those are going to stay on the bench, and, I mean, those 4 Tragic Slips that Todd has in his main deck, they're going to be working overtime, and we saw the first Tragic Slip actually take care of Huntmaster of the Fells, which is obviously a good target. You're happy to kill it, but then, you know, the Olivia that comes down 2 turns later is the actual problem, and then Todd doesn't draw another Tragic Slip, and he just gets beaten up and eaten alive by Olivia Voldaren, which, to be fair, is not the first time we've seen that here.
That's true. So let's see what Charles has in his sideboard. He has a bunch of 2-ofs in Vampire Nighthawk, Acidic Slime, Pillar of Flame, Liliana the Veil, Slaughter Games. What appeals to you here?
I mean, Pillar of Flame is the big one that stands out. Vampire Nighthawk isn't terrible either. Acidic Slime, I think the matchup isn't really about mana denial. Todd's deck has 24 mana sources. He only needs about in between 3 to 5 to operate, so I don't like that plan. Liliana really bad against him. Slaughter Games also really bad. So I think, you know, of the 2-ofs, Pillar of Flame's going to come in, and then he's got these bevy of 1-ofs.
Yeah, some interesting ones. A Singleton Vraska the Unseen, the green-black planeswalker. A Dead Bridge Chant.
Yeah, more for the Jundamir.
Ground Seal, Gaze of Granite, and Tragic Slip. Gaze of Granite certainly isn't a bad one, a Singleton to bring in. Why is that?
It's an interesting one. I think it's perfectly reasonable to bring that in. I don't think it's going to be great, but I think it's better than some of the other options he has. Again, like, I don't love a card. Like, he only has 1 Liliana the Veil in his main deck, so, you know, that can probably go. Charles has 3 Sire of Insanities in his main deck, and the game's never really going to get to that point where I think Sire is his all-star, because all of Todd's cards are just going to come onto the board immediately.
Yeah.
So, you know, those 3 can go, and then we're looking at like 2 Pillar Flames coming in, maybe like the Gaze, and then the additional Tragic Slip, and just calling it a day.
Pillar of Flame is going to be real good. We want to take care of those High Priests, and in the background we see Jeff Hoogland just wrapped up his feature match. He's carrying the slip, which usually means he's the winner.
Unless he's good, unless he's just super nice.
He's a real nice guy. Yeah.
I lost. I'll bring it up. No big deal.
Okay, so Todd Anderson lost game 1. He's on the play here. Leads with Isolated Chapel.
So we've got Charlie just playing in Woodland Cemeteries. We have a quick update for you guys. Jerry Thompson on to game number 3. So if we're able to cut to that, we will, depending on how this does go.
And Todd's got the turn 2 Doom Traveler off of those Isolated Chapels.
He's got the Buddy land draw.
Buddy.
Doom Travelers are coming in. Here's
and
a Duress.
Well, let's take a look. I would like to see your hand. And
this is one of the things that I felt could happen.
Yeah, that's a whiff. Swing and a miss.
And see, the thing, like, if you're looking at Charles's hand right now, excuse me, you see his hand. He has a Thragtusk, he has Live Elder, he has a Thermalhalkite, and lands. And it's like, well, that hand's, you know, if you're Duressing, you're like, man, your hand's like kind of bad or it's kind of slow. But Todd's deck isn't the kind of deck that can really punish him for having that slow of a draw. You know, that's the big thing. It's like that this deck doesn't really, you know, deal a lot of damage quickly like a red-green aggro deck or like a Naya deck or anything like that. So him having this slow hand isn't really like a big punishment or anything.
But here's Todd with the High Priest. So this is one of the draws where he can get out a little bit faster here if he has some kind of sacrifice outlet. And apparently he doesn't. He crashes in with the Skirgad High Priest and the Doom Traveler. And he's got Does he have no play on turn 4 for Todd Anderson?
It looks like a hand of 2 Tragic Slips, which are very important to being able to take care of Olivia, but he needs to find a sacrifice outlet in a Varls or a Cartel Aristocrat like right now, because Olivia has shown up, and it's important to get this thing off the table, and Sun Petal Grove is the draw for Todd.
And that's not going to do it. He needed that sacrifice outlet. He has the Doom Traveler, so he could play a creature, sacrifice Doom Traveler, activate the High Priest, and then Tragic Slip. But to no avail. Todd has to let Charles untap with Olivia Voldaren. And you have to think that that's big trouble for Todd Anderson.
Charles looking at his hand, he's going to play a Woodland Cemetery. And
Just going to go aggro.
All right, so he just wants to get this game over with. And you say you like that a lot?
Oh, I love to attack. My favorite thing to do in Magic is to attack. And here we go. Just like swing in for 8. Let's do it. Let's finish this off. Even if Todd can get his engine going, he's on his back foot. Charles clearly now knows that the coast is clear for things. Todd has drawn his Intangible Virtue.
Yes. And what I think we're actually going to see here, Ricky, is we might see a Tragic Slip targeting his Doom Traveler, and then the other Tragic Slip targeting something else, which is not ideal, to say the least. But that's why you kind of see Todd pause a little bit, because he needed to draw a creature or a sacrifice outlet over the past 2 turns, and he has not drawn one yet. And so, as you said, he's in a world of trouble right now.
Even if he goes with the Tragic Slip play, he doesn't have enough creatures to activate the High Priest.
Yes. So now we're going to see Charles play a Kessig Wolf Run, tapping some lands. He's going to shoot High Priest number 1.
Shoot it twice.
This is awesome for Todd. This is like ideal.
Now he can use both Tragic Slips here on those creatures. Yeah,
this worked out absolutely great. So now Tragic Slip number 1 going to take down Olivia. We're probably going to see a shot on the Doom Traveler, which, he thought about it, but then it just gives him a 2/2. So Charles doesn't do that. Tragic Slip number 2 takes care of Thundermaw Hellkite. And all right, Todd's doing a little bit better now.
That was a very good turn of events for Todd Anderson.
Yeah. So now a Lingering Souls and flashback. All right, we're turning this game around. So now here come your Spirit tokens.
1, 2, 3, 4. 2/2 Spirit tokens with Vigilance off of that Lingering Souls.
And I think Charlie does have Missing Mortars in his hand, and he can't overload it. So the question now is, does he want to establish Thragtusk first, or does he want to overload Missing Mortars? He wants to establish Thragtusk first, obviously. He's going to play that and gain 5 life. Let's see what Todd can draw. Draws Voice of Resurgence. Going to get Charlie for 8 and play the Deer Elemental.
I call it the Moose. The Moose is loose. And people have pointed out to me that moose have wider antlers.
Oh, whatever.
Than deer. Here we go. Yeah. Overloaded. Mizium Mortars. It's going to deal 4 damage to all of Todd's creatures. But Todd is left with the 1/1 Spirit token from the Doom Traveler and the Star Elemental token from Voice of Resurgence, currently at 2/2.
We see some more aggression here from Charles. He could hold back.
And they are both larger, actually, because of Intangible Virtue. So he could trade the Elemental token for Thragtusk here.
So you see Todd wants him to spread his lands. I think he wants to know how much Kessig Wolf Run can be active for next turn. And I think that may weigh into his decision for blocking this turn, because if he doesn't block this turn, then you've got a huge Wolf Run activation on Thragtusk next turn.
Right. He's potentially dead next turn to the Wolf Run.
Yeah, and you see Todd actually doing the math, with this pen and his paper. And ideally for him, he does not want to have to trade his Elemental token here for this. And also, the other thing here too, Ricky, is does he realize that the Elemental token is a 3/3 and not a 2/2? Because he might have to think that he maybe has a double block when he doesn't have to. All right, so here's a Farseek. So this is even a bigger Kessig Wolf Run activation next turn.
Yeah, so Todd takes that 5 damage from Thragtusk.
Virtue.
Ooh. Okay. But okay, so they have Vigilance. He's going to attack for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
Puts Charles to 4. And they have Vigilance. He's still got the blockers.
So this Wolfrun activation is for...
How much damage is that? Let's spread those lands out. Wolfrun.
Potentially 7 if he plays a land. So yeah, so 7 plus 5 is 12. 12 minus some number of blockers. I mean, Todd can definitely live through this turn. Because 12 minus, that's a 7. Yeah, 12 minus 7 is 5. Yeah, so no, he
Gotta crash in.
Yep, that's it. Yep. You see the big rule for an activation. He needed to have a land to make it exactly enough, which Charles did, and so that makes him victorious.
Wow, so that game, we saw some big swings there.
Yes.
We thought that Charles had a huge early advantage when Todd did not draw his sacrifice outlets. He led with Olivia Voldaren into Thundermaw Hellkite and just went for the throat. But Todd was able to clear the board with 2 Tragic Slaves when Olivia Voldaren went to town. And then follow up with Lingering Souls tokens. And then we thought Todd had the advantage.
Yeah.
And then Charles turned it around with Mizzing Mortars with one of his 5 board sweepers.
Yeah, which is what Mizzing Mortars is known to do. And we saw one of the big things too, again, is, you know, I feel like Todd felt like he needed to board in Duress. And so he boards in Duress, it misses, and then, you know, those 3 creatures that Charles has in his hand, in Thundermaw Hellkite, Olivia Voldaren, and Thraxos are the ones that actually end up beating him. Yes, the Mizzing Mortars was good in timely top deck, but, you know, again, he has multiple board sweepers and ways to clear the board, as we mentioned.
Yeah.